Hey guys, it's Rusty Glove Box here, and I've noticed that a lot of the fellas, they've been talking about their first car, and so I'd kind of been thinking about mine. And back when I was 14, 15 years old, I hauled a lot of hay, a lot of square bales, and did that on through high school and everything. I had saved my money for several years, and I had seen this little VW Beetle, 62 VW Beetle, sitting in this guy's yard. He had a bunch of wrecked and salvaged vehicles. And anyway, so I went up there and asked him, would he be willing to sell it? He says, well, what are you going to do with it? And, I says, well, I'm going to fix it up and I'm going to drive it. And so anyway, he says, well, $250. He figured I didn't have that, I guess. And so anyway, I came back the next day and gave him $250. And we ended up getting it back to the house. And I worked on it for a solid year, from 15 on through to 16. I had replaced the headliner, took a headliner out of one car and put it in my car. Replaced the rubber floor mat that was all deteriorated and tore up, and put carpet in it. Of course, it just had a AM radio, and like all those old bugs, the speaker that was in the dash grill there, it was cracked or something. I had come up with a speaker. I think that speaker might have come out of an old drive-in speaker. I don't know how I got a hold of that, but I had to do some interesting work on the engine. The car had kind of got hit in the rear once, and it had snapped the oil cooler off. It had two little ears that the oil cooler mounted on, and so just being a kid, took little 1/8 pipe tap, tapped that oil cooler hole out where the little O-ring sealed the cooler to the block, tapped that out, put me two little short pipe nipples on there, and ran hoses. I got a little cooling coil off of a water fountain, and mounted that kind of over the intake of the fresh air fan that cooled the engine off. Those old VWs, they had the heater boxes around the exhaust system, and the earlier ones, the heater was not near as good as they were in the later ones. I always kept a coat in there in the wintertime. It would get pretty chilly. I remember one time I was driving down one of the little dirt roads, back roads, and there was a low water crossing, and there happened to be water running over the spillway there, and I thought, man, this is going to be cool. I kicked it on up to about 40, 45 and drove down in that dip, and man, I just skated across the top of that water, and when that water hit that hot manifold, just the whole windshield steamed up. I couldn't see nothing, and man, I was just frantically wiping the steam off that windshield. Had a lot of good times in that car. Why the vehicle is not centered in the picture, I am not sure. But anyway, I had played football and I had hurt my knee. It swelled up pretty bad, but anyway, I was standing there by the bug, and here's another one. I think me and my brother, we fixing to go to town in it. Had 66 Pontiac Tempest hubcaps on it. They looked pretty cool. And let's see if we can't get a proud first car picture right there. Pretty nice little bug back in the day. A couple of my favorite stories about that old bug. It was a 6-volt system, and with that 6-volt system, it's kind of hard to get accessories to run in that car. And I remember Radio Shack used to sell a 6-volt to 12-volt booster, and it'd step the voltage up so you could run some, a radio or 8-track, something like that. And I had this old 8-track. That thing, it really drawed the juice. And I remember I'd had that 8-track in there, and I'd have a tape. And that little battery booster pack, it did not have quite enough amps to switch to the next track. You had to go ahead and manually mash the button once you heard it, because it'd just sit there and just kind of bogged down. So anyway, that's what I remember about that thing, that old 8-track, which sounded pretty good, but that battery booster pack, that thing, it just barely cut the mustard as far as having enough power to run that stereo. Another thing that was pretty funny in that car, all right, me and my buddies, we always liked to go to town on Saturday night, and we would kind of pool our money together. Didn't take much money to get that bug back and forth to town. We all went to town. It seemed like we went to movies, met some people and all that. And we went to the movies, and we got back in the car getting ready to go, and I cranked it up, and then all of a sudden, kapow! And man, that thing, it was missing and carrying on, and man, those guys, they were griping and belly aching. They thought they were going to have to walk or something like that. And I told them, I said, no, you just hang on. We're going to get back to the house. And so anyway, to this day, I still have this part right here. That is the original piston and valve out of my '62 Volkswagen Beetle. That next morning I got up and I jerked that head off and cylinder and piston, and I dug through the pile and found another piston, and took the rings off this piston and put it on my old piston that I was putting in there. And I dug around and I didn't have another cylinder head. And that old seat was just as crooked as can be in that cylinder head. But I had a lot of valve lapping compound. And I lapped and lapped and lapped that valve till I just wore that seat to fit that valve. And I thought, this thing will never run. But that thing, I cranked it up, and it would amaze you. It ran really good. And it kept running with that messed up head like that, as crooked as that seat was. But anyway, that was my VW engine catastrophe story right there. Always check your valve adjustment. Yeah, you know, when you're a kid and you think, man, I wished I could do this and that. And anyway, after I grew up and kind of reminiscing after my old '62, I had bought and refurbished this '66, and I had gone through it. It was kind of the tribute to my '62, but my mindset on this car, if I could have done everything that I wanted to that '62, that's what I did to this '66. But anyway, well, hey guys, I know it's kind of long-winded and all of that, but I got a kick over thinking about the old first car there. So anyway, I do appreciate y'all coming by. This is Rusty Glove Box, and I'm out of here.